A very warm welcome. You're watching RT International with me, Nikki Aaron. Good to have you with us this hour. Now, our top story, Israel is being slammed for how its military is handling ongoing protests at the Gaza border. The so-called March of Return has already left 17 killed and more than 1,000 injured. That's according to the Palestinian Health Ministry.
That people demonstrating in a march towards the fence were actually killed by soldiers is alarming.
The annual March of Return is a demonstration denouncing Israeli occupation. Thousands of Palestinians have pitched tents across 5 locations, where they're expected to stay for the coming weeks. World leaders have condemned Israeli actions against the protesters and were blamed for applying double standards by the Israeli Prime Minister. RT's Daniel Hawkins explains.
This isn't the first incident of mass Palestinian casualties in clashes with the IDF. Tragically, it won't be the last. The border violence had barely stopped before the criticism of Israel's actions came thick and fast from all directions. The UN Secretary-General was quick to call for a full investigation. The EU's Foreign Affairs Chief wasn't far behind. Israel, though, is having none of it. The army was doing its job. If anything, the soldiers that fired live bullets into the crowd deserve a medal, according to the country's defense minister. An investigation? No chance.
They ignore the murder of hundreds of thousands of civilians in the Middle East, but when Israel neutralizes 16 terrorists, they convene an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council. The IDF will not cooperate with any investigative committee. Let them investigate the murders of 500,000 people in Syria and tens of thousands in Libya, Sudan and Yemen.
No punches pulled, and some may say he does have a point. Multiple EU states have taken part in NATO or US-led interventions in Libya and Syria, which have contributed to civilian losses. And of course, they also continue to arm Saudi Arabia. That's despite the catastrophic situation in Yemen. But some world leaders return the focus to Friday's brutal violence on the Gaza border, with President Erdogan branding it an inhumane attack. And Prime Minister Netanyahu didn't let this go unanswered.
The most moral army in the world will not be lectured by those who have indiscriminately bombed civilian populations for years. Apparently, this is how April Fool's Day is celebrated in Ankara.
A thinly veiled reference to Turkey's tough line on Kurdish groups who Ankara labels terrorists, or perhaps to Turkey's ongoing military operations in northern Syria, triggering a further response from the Turkish president.
Hey Netanyahu, you're an occupier, and it is as an occupier that you are on those lands. At the same time, you are a terrorist.
And the EU itself wasn't exempt from the Turkish president's rhetoric. Don't throw stones from a glass house. One man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter is an old adage, but today it seems human life has become less valuable than political expediency or a good soundbite.
Author Max Blumenthal says it looks like Netanyahu and Erdogan are blaming each other for basically the same things.
I'm slightly amused by the denunciations exchanged between Benjamin Netanyahu and the Turkish leader, Recep Tayyip Erdogan. That both are accusing one another of massive human rights crimes, and both are correct, that one another has committed gigantic human rights crimes, Netanyahu in Gaza and against the Palestinian people in general, and Erdogan now in Afrin in Syria. I compared this spat between Netanyahu and Erdogan to the 2004 film Alien versus Predator, where two monsters battle one another to the death. And, you know, in real life, as I mentioned, Netanyahu and Erdogan are cooperating below the surface. Neither man can claim the moral high ground, so both are basically battling from the moral depths of depravity.
The evacuation of militants from the Syrian city of Douma in eastern Ghouta has started. That's according to Russia's defense ministry. Russia earlier announced that a preliminary deal had been reached with the Jaish al-Islam rebel group, which operates in the city. So far, over 100 militants have left Douma, the last rebel stronghold in the besieged area. The gun control debate in the US gains momentum as conservative Fox News host Laura Ingraham is essentially forced off air by a boycott. Jacqueline Vuga has the details.
The bigger they are, the harder they fall. A lesson that one of the most popular hosts on Fox News, the most watched cable news network in the U.S., is learning the hard way. Over a dozen of Laura Ingraham's top advertisers have pulled their commercials from her program. And Fox says the week off the host is now taking was pre-planned, but many think it may have something to do with 17-year-old David Hogg. He is one of the survivors of the Parkland school shooting and is practically a household name in America at this point.
This is the start of the spring and the blossoming of our democracy.
Because since the tragedy, he's become one of the leaders of the student-led gun reform movement that's took the nation by storm. Between TV appearances and mass protests, Hogg's face is everywhere.
Joining me now from Parkland, Florida, is senior David Hogg. He survived the shooting.
David, thank you for being with us.
Guys, it is so great to have you both back on the show.
More people have died in America as a result of gun violence than they have fighting in war. It's not time for debate. It's time to work together.
Let's put the USA over the NRA.
In a recent interview, Hogg mentioned that he had been rejected by a number of universities. And for some unknown reason, Ingraham decided to mock the student online, belittling his grade point average, and told him to stop whining. Now, in a different day and age, with different players, the whole thing may have gone unnoticed. But Hogg, who now has over 700,000 Twitter followers, chose to use his sway to successfully get Ingram's advertisers to boycott her show.
She's only apologizing after a third of her advertisers pulled out. And I think it's really disgusting, the fact that she basically tried promoting her show after apologizing to me.
From a tweet that she made, she may very well never come back again. That's the power of this. This is about a group of people who have been almost anointed as untouchable. This is professional, planned, organized. The Democrats don't have any issues. They have this one. They don't like Trump. That's their platform. But this is the only thing that counts as an issue. Guns. They hate guns. They hate gun owners. They hate gun manufacturers. This isn't going anywhere. And the Laura Ingraham Fox News story may change, but it will manifest and transmute into a new issue before you know it.
And frankly, his attack against Ingraham makes perfect sense, as there is no love lost between her and the left. We may be witnessing a turning point in the American political climate. Outspoken leftist voices like Hogg and his fellow activists were more or less sidelined. They were just the angry kids mad that their agenda was not passing through. But But now they have a powerful movement and a lot of momentum behind them that they're clearly not afraid of using. And their cause is getting the attention and support of a number of Democratic heavyweights, including Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, and even Bernie Sanders as well.
Let me especially thank the young people at the high school in Parkland, Florida, who are dealing with their grief by standing up and fighting back.
For many, Trump was seen as the voice of the people, everyday Americans whose concerns were often ignored by those in Washington. But today, a louder voice has taken center stage.